So, I'm going to be talking about democratic states and the relationships that they form with other states, specifically whether government type, whether that be democracy or non democracy, plays a factor in why alliances are formed. So, this is a really important idea to consider because alliances play a huge factor in our international system. They kind of dictate why states interact and how they interact, and why certain conflicts arise, whether they be economic or military. Um, so, by trying to understand why these alliances form, we can better understand our world and better understand why things happen. So, my hypothesis for this idea is that democratic states are going to be more likely to ally with other democratic states as opposed to non democratic states. This idea is based on the democratic peace theory, which states that democracies don't go to war with each other because they have an ingrained system of compromise within their governments where two parties will come together and work with each other to find solutions to problems and compromise. So that gets elevated to the international stage where these states come together and they work together and come to a solution that can kind of work for both of them. So that's why democracies are less likely to go to conflict with each other and more likely to just interact with each other in general. Um, so to test my hypothesis, I looked at Freedom House data of 3 different regions. So the regions were the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Southern China or Southern Asia. And it looked at each individual country within those regions and whether they were free or not free, which I interpreted it as democratic or non-democratic, and what their alliance status was with their neighboring countries. So I went through each combination of state, looked at their government status and their alliance status, and came up with tally data that summarized the findings of the different regions. And my data came up being that there were 12 instances where allies were both democracies, 10 instances of where allies were not both democracies, 2 instances where democracies were not allies, and 19 instances where both states were not democracies and not allies. And so then I ran a chi-squared analysis on this data, which concluded that there was a significant pattern in the data and that my hypothesis was statistically likely. So my hypothesis was supported by this data, and democratic states are, in fact, more likely to ally with each other.